Hello, I'm Luke Bevington, and I will be talking about my website. Hold on, just really quick. I'm not fully loaded yet. Okay, so the idea for this website is to have information and resources for our future classrooms, right? For us to use in the future when we are graduated and start having our own classrooms and being teachers and certified as teachers. Um, so let's kind of start walking you through my website. So as you can see, I have a little rundown of who I am and what I want as a teacher and like how I see myself becoming a teacher and like my philosophy of teaching. And then here is links to all 7 tabs that we had to do throughout this class. And then I put this quote at the end: the children are always ours, every single one of them, all over the globe. And I am beginning to suspect that whoever is incapable of recognizing this may be incapable of morality. And this is from James Baldwin. And I have just always really liked this quote. And so I wanted to put this in here. I feel like it encompasses all education that um, the children are ours, and we are here to help them and support them, every single one of them, um, as a global community. Um, all right, so I guess I'll start with legislation, IEP, and RTI plus MTSS resources. So I have 3 links to them, the following tabs. And then I have another quote here: the only person who is educated is the one who has learned how to learn to change, learn and change. Carl Rogers, he was a well-renowned educator. Um, and I I love this because like I've been told that I am to use or to be reflective as teachers, and like that's how we learn and grow, and as teachers as well as with our classroom, like students will be will some students will get what you're teaching, some students won't, and with formative assessments you'll be able to see um, what students do and what students don't, and you grow from there. You change, you learn and change. It's a completely reflective process, and teaching is like that consistently throughout teaching. Um, so the first one, legislative links and um, resources. Uh, So first I have like all information on special education, and then what IDEA is, which IDEA is the Individuals and Disabilities Education Act. It was originally called Education for All Handicapped Children Act, and it was changed to this in 1990 to encompass more than just handicapped children. Um, and the Act requires that all students from 3 to 21 are entitled to free and appropriate public education, and all states have incorporated this act into their own state rules for special education. Um, So the six guiding principles of IDEA is to complete individualized evaluation, free appropriate public education, which makes sure that students are eligible with a disability are entitled to um, a free appropriate public education, and that they are individualized to meet their specific needs. And then also IEPs, which are individualized education programs, which is a written statement for all the special education services that are provided to meet the needs of that student with that disability, and it's all individualized to that student. And then another one's least restrictive environment, which basically states that in order for free appropriate public education to be provided, students must be able to have a least restrictive environment, meaning that they are in general education settings to the greatest extent possible, uh, using modifications and accommodations to do that. And then parent participation, where parents are full and equal participants with the school district's personnel on their child's IEP team. And then also a procedural safeguard, which that decisions that are made comply to all laws and regulations. So MARS, this is specifically for Michigan Administrative Rule for Special Education. So IDEA covers 13 different eligibility categories. This is how Michigan specifies for them, and it outlines the federal special education laws and legislation and how they implement it for the state of Michigan. These are 13, which we will be looking at later. The Section 504, it was an act that was designed to protect the rights of the individuals with disabilities in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. Section 504 states no otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely by reason of her or his disability be excluded from the participation in, be denied benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And then I just cover a few other acts that have been passed over the years, like the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, where federal funding was increased to establish and was established to improve services of both elementary and secondary education. Every Student Success Act, or ESSA, was passed in 2015, and now is the current version of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, like I said previous, which emphasizes high expectations and access to general education. And then ADA, which is Americans with Disabilities Act. It was passed in 1990 as a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disabilities in all areas of public life, including schools, employment, transportation, and public services. And then here's some additional resources to research for myself in the future, or anybody that has access to this website if they want to use these resources. And then if we go back, here are the IEP resources. So first, it goes over what an IEP is. Like I said earlier, it's a document that helps that is developed for each public school student who qualifies for special education, and then it outlines the student's level of academics, and it talks about the accommodations modifications and services and educational goals and the method of monitoring their process as their progress as they grow as a student and achieve their goals. It's made by a team of individuals that specialize in making IEPs along with the parents of those students. Um, so what ELAAFP statements are. I know that's a mouthful. So it's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance statements. So the purpose of these statements is to summarize the current level of students' performance across the board, um, and it identifies the students' needs, strengths, and weaknesses. So it's one of the fundamental components of an IEP, and it's used to determine their goals early on. So I have information on how to include a high quality, or what should be included in a high quality PLAF. And then, so the IP team can begin the process of developing this quality statement by holding a discussion that centers around these four elements: the student's needs, the effect on progress in general education, baseline information, and then connections to goals and or services. And then here's some resources for PLAFs, and then how to, like guys are writing a tip sheet on how to make more examples of them. So in the future, when I inevitably will need to use this, I have the resources here. So creating goals, obviously you use the PLAF, and you have measurable annual goals. So for each one, it's essential that you cover their target behavior, which this could be like what specific skill you want them to demonstrate, like reading aloud or calculating math problems. And then the condition that they're at and the setting. So the setting and circumstances under which the skill will be performed, and where you want them to get to. Criterion for performance. What should be performed to basically state that that skill has been met or that goal has been met. And then a time frame. Usually it's yearly. But sometimes they also have like check-ins throughout to make sure that you get to that point. So here are some goal setting resources. I really like this video, reading it, listening to it, because it really demonstrates how to do it in a manner that makes sense to me. And then here are just some other additional resources that cover making these and just covering goals and supports for students with disabilities. Yeah. And then continuing on the pre-referral process, which is leading into making an IEP. So the process provides a forum for teachers and other team members, including parents, to discuss how to meet students' needs and how to empower general education students to a variety of strategies. It gives general education teachers a variety of strategies that help better serve diverse learners. So let's start with RTI, which there's a great model here on the right that starts off Tier 1, which is core instructional programs, and then Tier 2, strategical, supplemental instruction, and Tier 3, intensive intervention. So it's a multi-level system that of interventions that are designed to accommodate a variety of learning needs. And it focuses on early and continuous identification and assessment, which for the assistance of students who have been learning and who need learning or behavioral needs. So Tier 1 is barely any modifications or accommodations. And as you go up the tier, you will need more and more to get to that point. And usually, tier 2 and tier 3 are the ones that have um, uh, IEPs structured for them. Tier 1s also get them, but they are more prevalent in tier 2 and tier 3 students. So the multi-tiered system of supports, it's a framework that is comprised of multiple strategies that may be helpful in meeting these individual needs of these students. And it's very similar to RTI. Here's a video for response to intervention. We won't be watching it, but it's just a resource to use in the future. Here are the 6 stages of the pre-referrals process. So initial concern, information gathering, information sharing with the team. So you start off, you notice students are having a difficult time with either behavioral or academic problems, and you start gathering data and academic records and observations to be inputted in the process of making IEPs. And then you discuss possible strategies with the team, the pre-referral team, and you implement and monitor strategies as well as evaluate and make a decision based on the student's progress. And then here are some additional resources that I found to be useful. So that covers legislation and IEP, RTI, and MTSS resources. So now on to if it loads. There we go. Collaboration with professionals and families. So the first one is talking about co-teaching, and I have the several models that we covered in class. So one teach, one observes, one teacher teaches while the other takes notes. And I think this is a great way for being reflective because you have the other teacher that is taking notes on you, and you get to see how they may catch something that you miss while you're teaching, and it helps you to be reflective on stuff that you may mess up on and better yourself as a teacher. And it goes the other way around for the other teacher. And then one teacher, one assist. So one teacher takes charge, facilitating the lesson, and the other one is going around the class and assisting students that need help, which I've done a few times in pre-student teaching, and I find that to be a nice way of teaching because you still get that because as you're working together, you realize places where you could better the lesson. Station teaching, where students are divided up into equal groups and rotate between the 2 stations. I mean, usually co-teaching is only 2 teachers, so the 2 stations. But if there's more teachers, then obviously 3 stations, 4 stations. Parallel teaching, where both teachers are teaching the same lessons to the different halves of the classroom. So it just has a smaller group of students that are learning the same material, and they are able to due to having the less students, they're able to interact easier, make sure that students are able to grasp what is being learned. Alternative teaching, where one teacher teaches the classroom while the other pulls students aside for further instruction, maybe for the class previous, or students with like English as a second language students, or kids that have additional hand-eye coordination, students with lisps, just extra instruction that students may need. And then team teaching, where both teachers are teaching the class together at the same time, switching off who is taking charge. So benefits and challenges of co-teaching is that they can lead uh, the co-teaching leads to an improved instruction and increased enthusiasm, though it does come with possible challenges. If it's hard for them to work cohesively, then conflicts may arise with teachers, which the lack of cooperation is not good for the students. So it is important to establish a good connection and meet each other's needs. So here are resources that I found, common co-teaching practices, and different articles about co-teaching and like a lesson plan template for co-teaching. And then I have a little bit about paraprofessionals, just support staff that assists in the classroom and collaboration with, and it's important that to know that they are a support. They're not, um, they are also professionals, and they like you can't expect them to teach the class for you. Um, both parties should be engaged with lessons, and uh, they you should yeah. So students, not students, teachers should be under the impression um, that they are still the teacher, and that both parties should be respected with the same amount of respect, and to allow to plan together, check in together, work as a team rather than having them be um, just handling it themselves. Uh, so collaborating with families obviously is important to create a good environment with the students, but as well as family collaboration with their own student learning. So it's important to reach out to families early on and build relationships early on, getting to know the family and building positive relationships. Um, Having families involved helps to create community and allows for students to understand others in their own community. Um, and also, it's a process. Like you can't just have good family engagement immediately. Um, but it's important to keep family updated with, because I mean they're sending their child to you every day, so it is your job to also keep them informed with what you are doing with their students. And then I have some resources here for both parents to access as well as teachers. Um, so, like I said earlier, eligibilities. Here I have all 13 eligibilities based on Michigan. Um, the first cognitive, I have what cognitive impairments cover, their eligibility determiners, and then resources for 3, and then I have that for all 13 on here. Um, and then so for differentiation in UDL, wait for it to load. So this is a page that provides learning for both. Um, so UDL is Universal Design for Learning, which is a framework that is to guide and design, uh, is a guide for the design of learning environments that are accessible, inclusive, challenging for every learner. Um, so these environments should be purposeful, internalizing self-efficiency, and making sure that it's personal and socially meaningful. It should be reflective, like I said earlier. I keep mentioning uh, teachers should be reflective, and it should be your students should be informed that they should be reflective as well. So having that self-awareness and to be able to identify internal motivation, like your own internal motivations and influences, that support your learning, and just make adjustments when necessary, which I think that covers it very well. That like after following assessments, you make adjustments. You realize, you notice that students are not engaged, and you make an adjustment to or your lesson plan doesn't reach the time that you originally planned it. You make an adjustment. Um, so you make sure that UDLs are also resourceful. They apply assets, that strengths and resources that are help culturally. Make sure that they are authentic and strategic and action oriented. Just basically setting goals and monitoring learning and increase comprehension and create critical thinking. So the three core principles are multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression. So the why, what, and how of learning, basically recognizing the engagement is essential for active, meaningful learning, acknowledging that students grasp information differently and need varied ways to connect with the material, and learning by creating opportunities for learners to express their understandings. So here are some UDL resources. A lot, there's everywhere covers UDL. So I have a couple of videos as well as articles as well as websites that cover UDL as well, like the UDL guidelines that I already mentioned. That goes way more into detail on there. Yeah, I think these resources are very good for UDL. So for differentiation for an inclusive setting, this process is where teachers proactively modify content, lessons, and the learning environment to meet all the needs of the students. As students may have varying abilities and different support needs, as well as cultural backgrounds. So it's important to have differentiation in the classroom. Here is a little pamphlet, I guess, that covers 4 ways of to differentiate instruction, which is differentiating content, product, process, as well as the environment. And it covers different ways that you can do that next to them. And then here are many resources and different like instruction strategies that you could use to have differentiated instruction. So on to the next. So this is the SEL and the classroom management page, as well as design and behavior. So as we look at SEL, social emotional learning is a way of learning that is intended to help individuals develop their skills and knowledge to understand themselves as well as how to manage their own emotions. It supports emotional regulation, empathy, collaboration, and maintaining positive relationships. Skills are just as important as academic knowledge. So I have a bunch of resources here, and just ways to collaborate, different, and then also SEL that's according to the state of Michigan rather than just being the whole country. It's what Michigan state standards cover for social emotional learning. And social emotional learning is very important for students early on because in order to be an active citizen and like what all these other resources are covering to engage with students, you need to have an emotional understanding of yourself as well as social, not just learning the content. Because if you just learn the content, you never really understand who you are while going along with learning this content. So classroom and behavior management. So there are so many techniques that educators can use for classroom management, but the idea is to keep students focused, engaged, on task, organized, and be productive during the class period. So for peer tutoring, it's a research-based strategy that students take turns serving as tutors, or tutees, when implementing uh, when implemented this structure. Peer tutoring supports both academic and behavioral growth. So basically, I have some bullet points here: reinforcing content knowledge through teaching, promoting collaboration and communication, increasing motivation and engagement, boosting student confidence and self-efficiency, as well as building positive peer relationships. And then cooperative learning, it's where students work together in small groups that are usually structured, and they the goal is to accomplish a shared goal, or a task. And the whole idea is that learning together builds social um, understanding. So yeah, it's just positive interdependentness that students can rely on one another, and individual accountability where each member contributes. You have this interaction with other people, which is very important for humans to do. Group processing, reflection on how the groups work together, and then development of social skills, like I said, like listening, turning and talking, and leadership. Ways teachers can manage behavior in their classroom. They can set classroom expectations early and reiterate them, which is what almost every single teacher I've ever had has done, and I believe it works very well. And I've been taught that that is the best way to go about it early on. And also, I've heard so many teachers say to create a no tolerance policy, and make no exceptions to this rule, um, because as soon as you so say you say that your rule is that a student um, gets after school detention if they have their phone out or something, and you decide to let one slide. Other students are going to recognize that. Once you do that, once you make an exception, people are going to abuse your expectations and rules. You should always stick by them, and as soon as students will not trust you once you start to break away from this. So when aggression occurs, intervene immediately. Don't let it continue. Um, discuss with class. Uh, discuss with the class future plans for conflict resolution early on, so the class knows when the conflict arises, what is to be done. Um, Most importantly, to allow students to be involved in classroom expectations. I believe that having students create the classroom expectations is the best way to go about creating classroom expectations, because it allows the students to think that they are part of their learning, which they are. Um, so also scheduling is very important. Having structure ensures the best learning experience for all, and having this consistency and routine uh, has been proven to assist behavior management. And having a schedule posted also is a great way that helps that way. Um, and then make sure that you have clear signals to gain attention. My favorite is the quiet coyote. Limit instruction for no more than 15 minutes, and shorten assignments and work time is a great way as well to prevent um, behavioral, uh, create behavioral or prevent behavioral problems. Um, yeah, and then also make sure that transitions, like have have a consistent transitions between materials. So it also prevents behavioral problems. And then here are some resources for both cooperative learning as well as some behavioral management. Um, and then here's a kind of how I want to set up my classroom. It's just a bunch of ideas that I just have a ton of ideas that are going around in my head, and I don't know 100% what I'm going to have until I'm in that classroom. But I love the idea of having tables, having students sit side by side. They don't get the face-to-face action. They don't. I don't know. They don't have that interaction with students as easy. And I want to implement group work more so in my classroom. So having this will make it easier, and as well as being able to walk around the classroom it'll make it easier for me to walk around the classroom. And yeah, and then I want to have maps of the world. Since I'm going to be a social studies teacher, I want to have resources that show the civil rights movement. I want stuff that shows like all these other movements throughout, just important people um, in history that has led them to have um, the freedoms that they have in our country today. Um, and starting with the revolution to today. Um, and then I just have a bunch of stuff that I want for my classroom. A lot of this is stuff that I remember teachers using for their own wish lists. Um, so this one is social studies and assessment resources. We'll wait for this one to load. It's taking a second. Um, so yeah, it's just the first two are state standards from the Michigan State Standards as well as C3 framework, which the C3 framework is um, a great way for to align with Michigan State standards, and it just covers college, career, and civic life. It's just to prepare students for um, life past college or past high school. Um, so yeah, and then I just have a bunch of resources for history. I have Crash Course, great resources there. Library of Congress has a lot of primary source sets, geography, also YouTube, Crash Course YouTube playlist. ArcGIS Story Maps is a great resource for geography. Um, you can implement maps into a presentation that makes like while making a website with it. And the National Geographic Education is also a good resource for geography. iCivics, it's a bunch of games that are very much involved in um, helping students learn. I cannot figure out how to get to it right this second, but um, there are many games that help students learn about the government and especially American government. And then Crash Course also has great government and politics playlists as well. And then economics, I do not have the economics Crash Course on here, but the Crash Course also has the economics one. But I have Federal Reserve education, which the Federal Reserve has a ton of resources for economic education because they believe that it is important for students to be educated in economics, and then they provide infographic posters that if I do teach economics, I will be having these up in my classroom. Um, yeah, and then just assessment resources. So formative assessment is conducted during the learning process and provides ongoing feedback throughout, and then summative assessment is uh, to cover the whole unit to make sure that they got a grasp of everything that they need to get a grasp of throughout that entire unit. Formative is along the way where you adapt And so yeah, here's creating an assessment plan and 60 formative assessment ideas that I took from one of my other classes that I learned about from Dr. White. Uh, yeah, and then just a bunch of other assessment resources that I can use in the future. And then here's miscellaneous resources. Um, So yeah, I just have games like Kahoot, Jeopardy Labs, Quizlet Live, iCivics. Quizlet Live is a great one that I want to use. It's similar to Kahoot in a way, but it's collaborative and you walk around the classroom. So you get split up in different groups, and you have four different students in a group, usually maybe three, and so as the questions are up on the board, or not on the board, on your on the board it shows leaderboard. You have to get to, say there's 12 questions. First group to answer all 12 questions correctly in order wins, and then you go on to the next round, and groups change. Um, but if one student gets it wrong, they restart. So on your laptops, you get the question, and then you have four responses. Um, but there are 12 questions, so there's three students. So the other students may have the answer, you may not. So you have to collaborate with each other to figure out who has the answer to that question. So I think that's a great way to involve collaboration with students as well as um, study for um, exams. So apps, Padlet, Knowability, Duolingo, and just like all the Google apps. Google apps are a great resource because you have presentation access, um, website building access, uh, Google Docs, which is just great access for making presentations or just like providing them with different worksheets that you make for homework for them to take home. I have a bunch of Facebook groups here. I was not able to link them to Facebook, but if you just search them in Facebook, you'll find the groups. AMLE is the American Middle Level Education Association. Um, so this is just the network of those members, and I do plan to be an AMLE member at some point because they do provide great resources for middle level education. Um, and then social studies teachers, cultural responsive teaching, they have great resources on there for culturally responsive teaching, for teachers by teachers, just resources for teachers by teachers. And then teachers resources, teaching tips, and teaching articles, which is similar to for teachers by teachers, just a different web or Facebook group. And yeah, and then there's a bunch of websites that I feel would be good to use for professional development as well as trainings. Um, I use some from other classes as well as this class, and then just some that I have seen online before. Um, and then just a bunch of different podcasts. I love the Speak Out with Tim Wise podcast that I did in SPE 250. History That Doesn't Suck is a great one for helping create lesson plans in U.S. history because he tells the story so well that it helps you um, tell the story of the history that you're teaching while also um, covering all that is required to be in your lessons. Yeah, and then the rest of them are also just great education podcasts that others have recommended for me in the past. I have not listened to these other ones, but I have heard great things about them, and I think that they would be great for me in the future. And that was my website, and I do plan on using this in the future. There are so many resources that I have found while doing this that um, can be helpful to me right now, but I feel would be more helpful once I'm actually teaching and I can use it as I grow as an educator.
Um, and I honestly think anybody could benefit from using this website. Um, and I may even have it as to have students have access to this. Um, I may rework it, add more. It's like it's a working document kind of. I can add more resources to it that as I go along that I find to be important, and I can just slowly adapt this website to having that. And yeah, so that was my website, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's.